Hi, I'm Roy Coughlan, and I'm the creator of the podcast. You can find everything about me and the 5 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster, and you'll find it in the QR code there. I'd also like to thank my sponsors. If you or someone you know is struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard Anxiety Solution Program Company offers a 6 weeks system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com, where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you have high blood pressure or want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. Get a $50 discount with my code ROY. Go to zona.com/discount/ROY, and you see the QR code for all my sponsors down at the end. Quality Polish manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metals. If you'd like a brochure, you see it in the QR code, and you just let us know if you would like a quotation shipped internationally and very competitive rates. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast.
Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditation.podcast.org. We're also on YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I've got 4 other podcasts: The Speaking, To Learn Polish, The Crypto and the Awakening, Exposing Fraud and Corruption, but with Solutions. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. My guest today in San Francisco. She's the founder and drummer of Led Zeppelin powerhouse Zepparella. If I didn't do it justice, she'll kill me later. Spiritual counselor, author, and songwriter as well, and a meditation coach. Please welcome Clementine Moss.
Hi, Roy. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So, you're doing a lot, but you might just kind of let the listeners know a bit about who you are.
Yeah, so that's right. I'm based in San Francisco, and I'm the drummer for the Led Zeppelin band, Zepparella. And the reason that we connected was because I've just written a book that called From Bonham to Buddha and Back, and it's a memoir where I use my my music career as a kind of metaphor for spiritual practice. I've been playing drums for 30 years, and I've been meditating for about 30 years. So I found meditation and contemplative seeking around the same time that I found drumming. And, I really, for a long time, I thought that these were 2 separate paths in my life. I had my spiritual side, and then I had my rock and roll side. And, over time, I've really come to realize that the lessons I get on the meditation mat are often translate into my day as I'm, driving the van and getting the band to the gigs and being on stage and performing live. So that's kind of why I'm here. Yeah.
And because I've often been thinking about different forms of meditation without people even realizing it, whether they're on the golf course and they're just totally present, someone fishing, which people look at them thinking, how could you do that? But I'm convinced it's meditation. And I think when you're drumming as well, because you're not thinking about, did I leave the iron on it? Because you're totally present in what you're doing. And I think it's,
right. Yeah. Music has so much wonderful, like playing a musical instrument has so much opportunity for metaphor, for that space inside of a song where you're in awareness, and drumming, I think especially drum kit drumming, you're doing 4 different things for 4 different limbs, right? And so it's, it's a different kind of awareness. If I start really thinking like, oh my gosh, my left foot, what's my left foot doing? I didn't do that right. Everything kind of falls apart, right? And so it's really a practice of focus. We have that front attention that's kind of focused on the specifics of what you're doing, but then there's that wider awareness of what the other instruments are doing and how you're kind of navigating, kind of being played by the music rather than being the player. So I find that that's a really wonderful a wonderful metaphor for the way some of those awarenesses that we come to when we're sitting in meditation. And then, you know, when I started writing the book, I was thinking, you know, in this day and age, there's a lot of instruction about how to meditate, but there aren't a lot of examples of what does it look like when you get up from the meditation mat and blow out the candle and walk out the door and get in traffic, you know, or deal with your spouse or your coworker, or all of these different moments of the day. How does that practice translate, you know, into those moments? And I think it has a lot to do with being able to see ourselves, to watch what rises within us, watch our attachments, watch that anger at the mean driver, you know, rise. How quickly can we observe, look, anger, here's anger, feel it fully and watch it disperse? How quickly do those things disperse as they rise up in us? And I think the point of that is just being present.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
some people, what they do is they do their meditation practice in the morning and then that's it. And they don't come back to it again and they just lose it. They're not present at all.
Yeah. And we all do that.
Yeah.
We all do that. We all get dragged into, you know, into the mind, into the reaction life. But I do think that if we have a practice, even 10 minutes a day, we start to notice there's a little more space between us and our reactions. You know, I do believe that even a little bit of just falling into that other awareness every day, we start to note, maybe we don't even notice it, but we do start to shift in our reactivity. So yeah.
So with the drumming, because I don't know what the percentage of women drummers there are, but I mean, it's usually it's male orientated that are drum. So how did the whole lot come about that you got into the drumming? And the same with the meditation, like, was there just, you know, at the same time? I know you mentioned they both about 30 years, but I'd like to know the story of both.
Yeah, it's it is kind of a bit of an interesting story because I knew myself as a writer my whole life. I went to school for writing, to college for writing, and when I was 21 and graduated from college, I moved to New York City to be where, you know, all of my favorite writers had lived, and you know, in my 20s, I was kind of flailing around. I felt, when I really looked at what I was writing, I was very frustrated. I felt like I hadn't lived, you know. I felt like I'd had a very um, I hadn't been in the world really. I didn't have a story to tell. And I started to become frustrated, just frustrated. And what I do when I'm frustrated in my life is I just take a lesson, right? And so I was kind of thinking about, I had musicians in my orbit. My boyfriend of the time was a musician and a recording engineer, and one day I sat down at a drum kit when I was 27 years old, and he said, you know, here, let me show you a couple things. And I just kind of started doing it, and he said, oh, actually, you know, you've picked that up pretty quick. Let me set up a little drum situation in the house. And pretty soon that was kind of what I wanted to do. And I started taking drum lessons, private lessons with the best drum teacher in the world in New York, and Fred Klatz. And pretty soon when I got home, that's what I wanted to do. And it was shocking to me. My first show that I played, I think, you know, I had been playing for maybe a year and a half. And, you know, I was in New York City standing outside this music venue going, what the heck is going on? Like, what am I doing? But it just, I feel that drums were my instrument. You know, I really believe everyone has their instrument, and most of us think, I'm not musical. I just think you haven't really found that connection to the instrument. And for me, because I was kind of looking for a way to have a creative output that involved other people. I was so tired of sitting in a room with my brain and a pencil. I wanted to be in the world more, and I think music made sense for me because of that. And then come to find out that drums are part of my heart. And now I work as well as a spiritual counselor with the drum in the shamanic journey and in these different spiritual practices to use meditation as the drum to help us get into those meditative states. And I feel like, wow, the drums have brought me everywhere that I was meant to be. So around that time when I was 27, I went to my first 10-day Vipassana silent meditation retreat. And
So no drums.
learned that type of meditation. And that happened around the same year. So drumming and meditation, kind of fell on me at the same time. I had been, reading about, a lot about Zen before I went to that meditation practice. So I had some, kind of had started spiritual seeking a bit, I would say. But then that meditation practice, Vipassana practice, really made sense to me. And so then I just kind of started off on my life. So I guess I'm a late bloomer because I didn't really know what to do until I was 27. And I'm also somebody who never really put a lot of limits on myself. I think I had a kind of a privileged upbringing in the fact that I had, parents who said, do whatever you want to do. And so I didn't have a limit, I guess. I thought, okay, now I'm a drummer. That's what happened.
Brilliant. And because I was reading a few different things, and you were in other bands. You had, I know, was it, I've written down like 320 concerts in a year. I mean, that's insane. Like, so, like, how can you remain in control when you're doing it? Because I presume there's a lot of partying, and just like you're probably going to bed. I don't know, were you sleeping on the bus or whatever? Like, but that's a lot of touring for a year.
That was a pretty insane thing that happened when I was. Let's see, when I lived in New York, I was in a couple projects and then bands, and then I started a band with two other women. The name of the band was Bottom. We were known as a stoner rock band, right? So kind of Black Sabbath based, hard rock. And which was very popular at the time. This was, I think, in 2000, we did this tour. And we bought a new vehicle, a van, a small Ford van. And we thought, this van is kind of nicer than our apartments. So what if we give up our apartments and just go on the road? And we had gotten a new booking agent who was wonderful. And we called him up and said, can you put us on the road indefinitely? And he said, I can do that. So we went around the United States 8 times in that year, and we played a show every day.
You were lucky to get an agent like that, because most of them, they talk, but they don't do. But to have that kind of amount of shows lined up is fantastic.
That was a benefit of the time, because that there was a specific, we were in a specific genre, and there were specific venues that played that kind of music. It was when Monster Magnet was very popular, and Caius, these big like hard rock bands that were playing in, venues of 300, 400 people, right? So it was just the three of us, 3 women in a van, living in the van. So we would sleep in the van or crash on people's floors. Every now and then we would get one hotel room, and someone would sleep on the floor, and someone would, we'd each get a bed. So we did everything for that year. And it was very intense and fun, and like, nothing that, I don't know, that experience is very special to me because only the three of us know about it, so it was a special time.
So with the what's it called?
Zepparella.
Zepparella. So like, was it that you were all fans of Led Zeppelin, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that was funny because when I was in that band for a few years in Bottom, I had an idea that maybe we should, do a side project and learn Led Zeppelin's music, because I wanted to, Led Zeppelin was my favorite drummer, and I thought, even just to practice, to learn to become a better drummer, it would be good to learn, some of his catalog. And they didn't go for it. We were busy, so it didn't happen. But then in some downtime, I started playing with an AC/DC band. And that band, the guitarist, the Angus Young, Gretchen Menn in that band, she and I were talking about wanting to do, wanted to play more live. And I told her about my idea for the Led Zeppelin band, and she said, "Oh, like I would like to do that too." And I never really thought that I would play John Bonham's parts on stage. I hadn't, you know, I wasn't, I never at that time, I didn't consider myself, a real drummer because I didn't start as a teenager. So I thought there was no way I could do it. But I don't know. Once I started learning the songs, I think that music is just in my blood. I fell in love with that music when I was 14, and so I thought, well, I'll just do my best. That's all you can do. I'm never going to be John Bonham, but I love it as much as anyone listening. So I just really try to convey the feeling, the emotion that's in his playing, and do my best to make my footwork right.
And like, it's so John Bonham was the lead drummer in Led Zeppelin, and your book is Bottom to Buddha and Back, I believe, isn't it? That
Bonham to Buddha and back. Yeah.
So like obviously we get the bottom part, but the Buddha and Back is just because of your own meditation journey is how you came up with the title for it.
Yeah, I wanted to show that the book is about my music career, and Bonham has a lot to do. I've been doing Zepparella for 18 years. So Bonham is a big part of my music career. And then Buddhism, from Bonham to Buddha. These are the two aspects of my life that I wanted to marry in this book, to kind of explain both of them, explain my thought process and my interior process of my life. Buddhism has a lot to do with that. I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist, but I definitely, how that is. I definitely have had a contemplative practice for a long time. Yeah.
And with your kind of being a musician, the sound meditation, then you could resonate a lot better with that. So you're actually teaching that as well, or you're kind of applying that for your clients?
I use sound as healing, and when I work the counseling method, I'm a spiritual counselor, and I work in a few modalities. One of them is called depth hypnosis and applied shamanism, and these are modalities that were created by a teacher in Berkeley, Dr. Isa Gucciardi, and they're practices that combine, the Western psychological method, Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, because Tibetan Buddhism has a very strong base in shamanism. There's the Bun tradition of Tibet that Buddhism kind of took a lot of work with sound and light and color, those kind of more shamanic aspects of healing. Tibetan Buddhism kind of took that in some of the rituals and the healing practices. And then shamanism, which we call it earth-based wisdom. It's the information that we get from the natural world, right? A shaman is someone who translates the messages they get from the natural world to the group, to the community. And shaman do that, get that information. In some cultures it's using plant medicine. In some cultures it's doing, intense rituals to access an altered state. Some it's meditation. And in many shamanic traditions, the drum offers us an ability to provide an altered state for people. The drum, the sound of a repetitive drum, does something to our brain that's the same as the meditative state. And so when we listen to a drum, a repetitive sound of a drum, we can access our internal metaphor, right? Our internal information, the same way we do in a deep meditation. So it's kind of combining all of these things. And I work with people with PTSD and anxiety and childhood trauma, and getting over those things. It's a beautiful counseling method that helps people. So I do that as well as my music career. Yeah.
Right. And with the breathwork, then have you gone into breathwork?
Breathwork is one of the ways that that people can access those altered states as well. I know, in the 50s and 60s, Stanislav Grof took some of the traditions of breathwork and brought them into the counseling model, so that people could, again, access that place within them where healing and truth lives. Yeah.
I can't remember where it was. I don't know, was it in Mexico? I was at some event and they did a meditation in a cave, but it was dark and it was sound meditation. And it was such a beautiful experience. It'd be like if it was available where I am now, you do it once a week. It was just, but it's very hard to actually get some place that actually can do it right. I mean, there's a few people out there that are doing things, but they don't really know what they're doing. But it would be nice for everybody to have access to that.
I think everybody does have access to it. I mean, I think that, learning how to do a shamanic journey. So a shamanic journey would be, we can see it as a kind of meditation where we're somewhere very comfortable and we just listen to the sound of a frame drum, and then we are taught how to access the different places that we go to meet different, what we would call guides, right? So say you're listening to the drum and you're imagining yourself in a beautiful place in nature, and then you begin to go into the earth somehow, right? And then with the intention of meeting a guide. And so you go along and maybe the image of a bear pops up. And you ask the bear, are you my guide? And you get a feeling like, this must be my guide. Now, we think, that's just my imagination. I'm just making it up. In that state with the drum and that deep meditation, we just let that go. We just allow these images to rise and we ask for guidance and protection. And, I think that these are parts of ourself, the parts of ourself that really do have our best interest at heart, right? That really do, that we can access answers to questions that we have, or at least have a sense that there's a part of ourself that really wants the best for us, that knows the best path for us. Connecting with that is a way of empowering ourselves.
And with the music then, because I'm hearing a lot about the different frequencies that for music it was altered so that we don't get the right benefit. But if it's only recently I heard, I forget what they're called, these kind of boom boxes, just one device, that it's better to have like the timbre speakers, but in reality the ideal is to have the instrument where you're banging it, that you're getting the full vibration of the thing. But what's your thoughts on that? The different kind of ways of getting the music to you. I mean, obviously, ideal would be to be present in a setting where somebody is actually playing the instrument. But if you can't, is it earphones, or do you just have the speakers, or what's the best way to actually try to get the feeling connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's probably different for everybody, you know. I think that listening to a drum, the repetitive, I have a recording of a drum for my journeying, and I can just put headphones on and lie quietly, and that will put me into a state. I like headphones because it encloses me. It puts me inside of the drum. If I'm doing work with somebody where I'm actually working on maybe a physical or emotional block or something in the body, then it would be really helpful, I think, to be, to have the drum be able to put those frequencies into those places of block, right? Or the singing bowl, these different, that is very healing. But I think when we're going internally to look at our, to access that altered state, I think headphones are great. Yeah, I think there are two things going on. One is sound for healing, and one is sound for insight.
And I mean, there's something, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but I was looking at some guy, they were the buds that you use, that the frequency goes from one ear to the other. And that's why the lead is a lot better. And I see you've got the lead as well. And it's just to be cautious of some of the devices that we're using.
Yeah, I never know. I mean, I put off having the earbuds for a long time, but I tell you, those things on an airplane, when you turn on the noise canceling, are fantastic. It's like you don't even hear the airplane, so get to sleep. So there's, I don't know. I feel like we're in an environment of all sorts of danger, right? So I just
And
kind of
then, yeah, because somebody else was saying like that the power that we've got not to fear these different things, that we're so strong within that we can actually, once we, we're kind of feel sovereign and strong in ourselves, these things can affect us.
Well, I wonder sometimes if the stress of worrying about those things is just as damaging as what's happening,
I'm sure
Sometimes
so,
I
because
I
when
wonder
you
that.
are thinking about something, you're actually putting it into your own cells, and that in itself has a knock-on effect. So sometimes
Yeah,
knowing things maybe
right.
isn't the best thing. Yeah, so
I mean,
I should stop telling people about it.
well, I have a friend who won't use microwaves, so it's microwave ovens, and for me, it's like I'm using it. It makes my life easier. So maybe I'm shortening my life, but at least I'll have hot food.
Very good. So with the book, so you might just kind of give us a kind of synopsis of the different chapters, what you're kind of covering in it.
Yeah, so the book is divided into 100. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. This is what my book looks like. Actually, let's see, I have only the test one, so it's got a line through it, but that line isn't usually there, but that's what the book looks like.
And the
It's
cover is actually grabs your attention, like if
That's
it's
what
on a
I wanted.
picture. Yeah, no, I
I
like
was
it. Yeah.
I was walking through airports, when I travel a lot, and I was looking at everybody's book, and I was like, I want something that your eye would go to. So that's yeah, so that's what the book looks like. And so it's divided into 100 short chapters. I like that because people can kind of pick up the book, it's not you don't have to sit down with it for hours and hours. You can kind of read a chapter a day if you wanted. Um, and the book is it has several different kinds of things. So there are my thoughts about different Led Zeppelin songs. Each kind of dividing. There are 10 dividing um, chapters or markers in the book, and those are all Led Zeppelin songs. And so I kind of dive into several Led Zeppelin songs, my thoughts about playing them, or my thoughts about the song and maybe what the song leads to. So, my discussion of the song Dazed and Confused kind of leads into a little conversation about the shamanic journey, right? So Led Zeppelin figures prominently. My father passed away in the same year that I found drumming and meditation. So he never got to see me play. So part of the book is a kind of a love story to my father and his influence on my musical career. There are pieces about my actual experience of sitting on a meditation mat and some of the practices, some of the insights that I've gained through that. There are stories of the road, stories of my time in New York City when I was floundering around. And there's also an exploration about, a big difficulty in my life was my negative internal voice, and that figuring that out, how to get away from underneath that negativity, internal negativity, was what brought me to contemplative practice, to try to understand myself. Why do I have this megaphone of negativity, constantly? And so there is a bit of me talking about moving through that, how I did really let go of that. So that's in there too. So it's Clem. It's all the aspects of Clem kind of put into the book.
Brilliant. And because I was checking the reviews, it's all positive comments. Like, on Amazon, it's like nothing. And I mean, I always allow for like 10% or whatever, because you'll always have somebody that'll be writing, "Oh, it wasn't for me," or what. But it's all positive, so that's a good.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. I hope it stays that way.
And
The day that I put out the book, I thought, oh, that's right, people will read it. Like, I completely forgot that people were going to be reading my book.
with the writing then, because you did the Modern Drummer magazine and then a memoir magazine. So is that something that's happened recently, and is it something because of the book, or how did this the getting featured in them different magazines?
Yeah, well, I started writing, when I was set out in drumming. I kind of stopped writing for a long time. I just focused on music. And then over time, writing came back to me, and I started a blog in 2016 called Bliss and Drumming. And so a lot of the pieces in the book started out in the blog. When I started to compile the book during the pandemic, I thought, oh, well, I'll just compile all my blog pieces and that'll be it. And then I realized that's actually not a book. Like, I need to write more. So I kind of wrote more, but I did take pieces from the blog and put it into the book as well. So, so that's when I started doing that. And then I was asked to write some articles for Modern Drummer magazine, which was a big deal for me, because when I started playing Modern Drummer, I mean, it's the pinnacle of drumming. That magazine was really important to me when I started out drumming. And so I wrote some articles for Modern Drummer, and then for Roland, the company Roland, I wrote some articles, and for their website, which is a wonderful website, actually, a lot of information there. And then, a couple other places. So I don't know, I just started seeing if anybody wanted what I was writing. I looked out.
And are you playing many concerts now? Are you doing much traveling? And
I am. Yeah, we let's see. Last weekend we were in. We usually do 2 weekends a month, 2 3-day weekends. That's kind of our schedule these days. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. We tend to fly most of the time now into places. So 2 weekends ago we were in Nashville, Atlanta, and somewhere, Knoxville, Tennessee, and Then the next weekend we were in Oregon and a couple of shows in California. And the end of the month we'll be back in Tennessee, Indiana. So we kind of fly in, play 3 shows, and then come out, and everybody does everything else that they do. The people in the band are Gretchen Menn is my guitarist, Anna Christina is the vocalist, and Holly West is the bass player. And they all have very active solo projects. So we all, Zepparella's, something that we all agree to do 6 to 8 shows a month, and then we do other things the rest of the time.
And has your kind of zen aura passed on to them, or do they look at you with kind of 2 heads?
No, they all have their own practices, and we influence each other, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Listen, Clementine, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You might let people know, how can they get in contact with you?
Thank you, Roy. So if you go to clemthegreat.com, that has everything there. It has the books, the music, the songwriting, the contemplative practice, all of that stuff, or the spiritual counseling. There are different tabs for all of it. Clem the Great is kind of the hub of me. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And Zepparella is Zepparella, Zepparella.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. I'll make sure I put the links both in the audio and the video. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And just because I nearly forgot, you actually were kind enough to give me a meditation as well. So that will go out after this episode is aired. And it's a lovely kind of 10-minute meditation. I don't feel like it. So if you want to just mention about that one, actually, sorry, I should have brought that up, but you might
that's
just
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was going to be along the lines of the kind of meditations that you do.
No, I listen to it. I love it. I think it's perfect. It's ideal. I think people will appreciate it. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I had a Patreon for a while where I would do send out 10-minute meditations, and they're very informal, but they're guided meditations, and this one is called Meditation for When You Don't Want to Meditate. When you're just like, there's nothing in the world I want to do less than sit down and meditate. Okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen. That's what that's for.
And I think that's the beauty as well with the short ones, because sometimes people think, I need an hour or 2 hours or whatever. 10 minutes, reality is you can have 1 minute if you need to, that you just kind of reset and then just come back a new person. But so basically people will get to listen to that and connect with you. So I'll put all the links both on that as well. But thank you very much for a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's all for the Meditation Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on YouTube, and you'll find my links along with my coaching, my 4 other podcasts, bio.link/podcaster. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. And when you get Clementine's book, make sure you give her a 5-star rating as well. Keep that up there because, it all helps. More people get to see it. Until next week, take care.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. You'll find everything about me on bio.link/podcaster with all my podcasts, and you'll find it you see in the QR code in the graphic that's shown. I'd like again to thank my sponsors. So if you or someone you know struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard's Anxiety Solution Program company offers a 6-week system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com, where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you fight blood pressure and or want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. You can get a $50 discount with my code ROY, zona.com/discount/ROY, and you'll see it in the QR code as well as Daniel's QR code. Quality manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metal materials. You see the brochure there in the QR code, and let me know if you would like a quotation, shipped internationally at very competitive price. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and also all my listeners. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Really helps. And I also have a video on how to give a 5-star rating because a lot of people have wrote to me asking me that they don't know how to do that. Until next week, take care.